You're standing near an elephant enclosure when it turns its head and looks at you. Not past you, at you. It holds that look a beat too long, long enough that you glance away first. Somewhere on this planet there's a species that could feed a village for a month, and you've never seen it on a menu. So why has the biggest meal on land gone almost untouched? Or is it because part of you suspects this animal keeps a list, and you'd rather not be on it? Here's the part that shouldn't be possible. Researchers in Kenya played recordings of human voices to wild elephant families. Nothing but sound. No visual. No scent carried on the wind. When the voice belonged to a Maasai man, the herd bunched together and retreated within seconds. When the same words came from a Kamba man, they barely lifted their heads. Same language, same volume, same distance, different verdict. The elephants weren't reacting to a human. They were reacting to a category of human, and they'd already decided which category was dangerous. That's not instinct in the simple sense, a flinch at a loud noise. That's something closer to profiling, a filter. Not something an elephant is born with, something written on top of the wiring later, updated generation to generation, like new code loaded onto old hardware. Nobody's proven that filter is the reason this animal never made it onto a menu. But it's hard to hear about an animal that can sort a hunter from a stranger before he's finished a sentence, and not wonder. Honestly, when this study first came out, plenty of biologists assumed it had to be a fluke. The study is real. Karen McComb and her team ran it in 2014, publishing through the National Academy of Sciences after 142 separate playback trials across 47 elephant families in Amboseli National Park. The Maasai have hunted elephants with spears for generations, defending cattle, proving manhood. The Kamba, living in the same region, mostly haven't. The elephants knew the difference, not just by voice, but by pitch. When researchers electronically warped a Maasai man's voice to sound like a woman's, the herd still ran. Because it was never really about the sound. It was about who was underneath it. It's not that elephants are too dangerous to hunt. It's that they might be keeping a list of who's worth hunting them back. And the filter goes deeper than sound. A separate study out of the University of St. Andrews, published in 2007, found that elephants in the same region reacted to the color red, specifically the red shukas Maasai herders traditionally wear, by moving away from it, even when no person was anywhere near the fabric. Show them the same cloth in white, and nothing happened. It wasn't the color. It was what the color had come to mean. Somewhere in an elephant's memory, a shade of red had been filed next to a spear. Which means the animal humans supposedly never touch for meat has been quietly building a threat profile on humans this whole time. And every hunter who ever tried and failed became one more entry in the file. But here's where it gets stranger, because elephants aren't the only ones keeping a ledger like this. Off the Pacific coast in the early 1800s, whaling ships hunted sperm whales so efficiently that entire pods vanished from a hunting ground within a single season. Then something changed. Researchers from Dalhousie University pulled 2 centuries of ship logbooks in 2021 and found that the rate at which whalers successfully struck a whale dropped by more than half within just a few years of entering a new region. Not because the whales got harder to find, but because they got harder to catch. Pods that had survived a harpoon strike started swimming against the wind, in directions ships couldn't easily follow. And pods that had never personally been attacked started doing the exact same thing. Somewhere in that ocean, whales were telling each other what a ship looked like. That's not a species we decided to spare out of kindness. That's a species that made hunting them expensive enough to stop being worth it. And if a brain built for tracking ocean currents can pass a warning like that down through a pod fast enough to end an entire industry, it raises the question of what happens on land when the animal being hunted has a memory that outlives the hunters trying to kill it. In October of 2021, rangers at Kruger National Park in South Africa found the body of a suspected poacher in a remote stretch of the reserve. His companions had already fled, leaving him behind. There were no dead animals nearby. No gun battle. Nothing but the kind of injuries that come from something enormous. Investigators said it was likely an elephant. Nobody is claiming the animal understood the word revenge. Nobody has to. One thing is true either way. On that particular day, in that particular place, hunting this animal cost a man everything. Here's the detail that should really sit with you, though. In parts of Central Africa, there are communities that still hunt elephants for meat today, right now, and even they carry a rule that has nothing to do with any government, any wildlife law. The hunter who lands the killing blow is the one person forbidden from eating what he killed. Not fear of the law, not religion, not officially. Something about landing the blow yourself, and then sitting down to eat the proof of it, crosses a line even the people who eat elephant meat aren't willing to cross. Not the animal. The act of claiming it as yours. So maybe this was never really about the money, or the difficulty, or the law at all. Except, be fair to the skeptic here, because there's a version of this that's just math, and the math is real. A female elephant carries a pregnancy for 22 months, the longest of any land animal, and won't reach breeding age for over a decade after that. No rancher on Earth could turn a profit on an animal that takes that long to pay you back. That's a real reason humans never farmed them for meat. Maybe the biggest one. But it doesn't explain everything. Pigs reach slaughter weight in about 6 months. They're cheap, fast to raise, and, according to a 2015 review by comparative psychologist Lori Marino, pulling together decades of research on pig behavior, capable of the kind of social learning usually reserved for dogs. Pigs recognize each other by face. Pigs learn by watching one another solve problems, then apply the trick themselves. And pigs are eaten by the hundreds of millions every single year without a second thought. If economics alone explained the menu, that would be the whole story. It might still be. But it leaves an animal capable of building a threat profile on the exact species that hunts it sitting right there, unexplained, next to the math. So this is where the ground gets shaky, honestly. Nobody disputes the behavior anymore. Elephants sort a human voice by threat level in under 3 seconds. They return to the bones of their own dead, sometimes years later, and touch them. Something in a sperm whale pod's memory outlasts the whale that first learned it. All of that is measured, recorded, published. What isn't measured, what nobody has figured out how to measure, is whether any of it is deliberate. Whether an elephant that kills a poacher is settling a score the way you'd understand a score being settled, or whether it's just a very large animal responding to a very large threat with no ledger involved at all. Nobody has ever gotten an honest answer out of an elephant. We only get to watch what happens to the people who test it. Which brings us to Lawrence Anthony. For years, he rehabilitated traumatized wild elephants on a reserve in South Africa. Animals that arrived already marked as dangerous, one incident away from being shot, and left calm enough to live among people again. He died suddenly of a heart attack in March of 2012. 2 days later, according to his family and the rangers who worked beside him, the elephant herds he had rescued arrived at his house, herds that hadn't visited in over a year, walking more than 12 miles through the bush to get there. They stayed for 2 days. Then they left the way they came. Nobody can prove what those elephants understood. Maybe it was root memory. Maybe it was a scent still hanging in the air. Maybe it was nothing at all beyond coincidence dressed up as meaning. Nobody can draw a straight line from that walk to Lawrence Anthony's door all the way back to a menu that never had elephant on it. That's too much to hang on one story. But once you've watched a species carry a memory that far, on its own, with nothing to gain, the question of why nobody's ever eaten it stops feeling like a question about money at all. So the next time you hear that the biggest meal on land has never once been on the menu, don't reach for money, or difficulty, or taste first. Somewhere out there, something the size of a room might still be keeping score of who it can trust. And maybe, on some level none of us can quite explain, we've always known better than to test it.